Hey there everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for a new video. We're going to be creating a fun Funny Friday project using Art Impressions, and I'm going to be making a slider card that features this adorable Spooky Wagon stamp and coordinating die set. So I have the set on my desk here, and the set comes with these adorable images that you can build together to create some really cute fall scenes. This also comes with the coordinating dies so you get everything all together. We're going to be making a slider card, so I'm going to utilize these gliders and also one of our Simon Says Stamp interactive slider die sets. This one's Slide and Glide, and we're going to use the straight slider for this particular project. I'm going to mount the images into my Misty tool and stamp them with black ink. I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring for these images, so I want to make sure I have an ink that's perfectly safe for Copic coloring, so I'm going to use our Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. I also stamped onto some Hammermill white cardstock. That's great for coloring with Copics as well. I'm going to use pretty simple coloring techniques for these images. I really just was trying to give all of these images a very Halloween-like appearance. So you'll notice I incorporated a lot of orange, purple, green, and black throughout the coloring. I particularly loved coloring this little wagon. I also wanted to add some of those Halloween accents to the trim, the wheels, and even the little canopy. So I incorporated some purple and green throughout this, and that tied up really well with the black coloring. For things like the ghosts, I just added some simple gray shading, very clean and understated, just to give them a little bit of dimension. There are some wood elements incorporated throughout these images, so for the sign, the wagon, and even the cat, I used the same browns, so that helped tie everything together. I also used those same browns to color the stems on the pumpkins. So we're almost done, but I did want to bring in some pop of fall color, so I did color in the leaves as well with some bright fall shades. Mostly trying to keep the same colors that I used throughout this image, but I did bring in a few reds just to add a bit more of that fall-like color. I'm going to use the coordinating dies and our Simon Says Stamp very low tack tape to cut these images out. Our very low tack tape is perfect for using with dies because it'll hold everything down really well. You can easily remove these die cut images and not have to worry about the tape impacting the beautiful coloring that you just did. I'm going to use some micro dots from our Simon Says Stamp micro dot sheets, and I'm just going to burnish those micro dots onto this little trim that goes with the car. I colored that with just some simple gray markers, but I wanted to make sure it was easy to attach onto my project, and the micro dot sheets was perfect for this. So I just stacked that right on top of the wagon, and that made quick order of that. Alright, so the main part of this project, besides creating those cute images to create our scene, is that we need to build the scene that these pieces are going to go on top of. So I'm going to start first with this Simon Says Stamp Slimline Scene Builder stencil, and we're going to use this to create some ground. If you've watched any of my other videos, including Funny Friday and also Studio Monday, you will have seen me use this stencil quite frequently. It is fantastic for scene building. I love making scenes with different stamped images, and I use this stencil a ton. So I'm using it with our Simon Says Stamp Pawsitively Saturated inks, and I'm using some green shades to create some nice depth and dimension here. We're going to have a nice bit of shadow along the top edge of our hills. And I'm just going to repeat these hills across this whole card panel. This is a slimline card panel, slightly smaller than a slimline card. My finished slimline card is going to be 8.5 by 3.5. So after I've added all the shading for the grassy hillsides, I'm going to bring in some yellow. This is going to kind of create a glow in the night sky. This is just focused along the bottom with the green. I used the Simon Says Stamp Night Sky Moon to add that really nice dimensional crescent moon along the left-hand side of the card. Now this stencil does have the coordinating mask that comes with it. I'm going to use that mask to go ahead and lay that right on top of the moon that we just stenciled, and I'm going to hold it in place with some pixie dots from ThermoWeb. These are removable adhesive dots, so if I attach these dots to the back side of my mask, that's going to allow me to hold it in place on my project, but I can easily remove it so that I don't have to worry about having any adhesive residue or damaging the ink blending that I've already done. So now I can use this to keep the beautiful yellow moon clean while I ink blend the night sky around it. I used more Pawsitively Saturated inks in Royal, TIDEPOOL, and I even brought in some Purple Galaxy to add a really nice dark contrasting night Halloween sky behind my images. Now, our Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks are water reactive, and that's what's really cool about these inks is that you can create some cool lift effects. So I'm bringing a baby wipe and a stencil on top of this scene, and I'm creating basically a bleached effect with these stars. These stars are basically getting lifted. The ink is getting lifted off of the paper. So we're now removing some of that ink, and in place, we're giving these beautiful stars. So this is gonna look really cool. It's very subtle, so it doesn't distract from the rest of the scene, but it creates that perfect night sky effect. Now this stencil I have is actually from a Stamptember exclusive that Tim Holtz did for Simon Says Stamp, but there is actually a stencil that Tim Holtz did that is literally the same thing. So I'm going to link to that in the video description below, along with all the other products that I'm using today. It's a really good stencil. I actually just don't have that particular one, but I had the Stamptember exclusive, so I wanted to make sure I used that particular star pattern. Now, speaking of stencils, I also ink blended these bats. This is a really neat bat stencil that we have from Simon Says Stamp, and that was perfect for creating those dimensional bats floating up into the sky. Now we're ready to move on to adding a sentiment. I'm pulling out this really cute Halloween stamp set. This one's too cute to spook, and it is so much fun. I actually used one of the greetings and also the candy corn image from that stamp set to add some other accents around the cute pumpkins and leaves that I have for my scene. So for the sentiment, I stamped it with embossing ink onto some burnt orange cardstock. I'll use white embossing powder to sprinkle over top of that, heat set it, and then I'll just fussy cut this greeting out. I plan on putting this along the left-hand side of my card over by the moon, and I thought just fussy cutting it would look cute. So now I want to switch gears, and we're going to talk about how we create the interactive slider for this card. So you'll notice as I was doing the sentiment that I already had cut the slider. We're going to backtrack a minute, and I'm going to show you what I did. So after all the ink blending, I took the slide and glide, the little skinny strip. I'm going to use that as my slider for this card. So I'm going to put this on top of my panel, hold it in place with some tape, and then die cut it. So now we have this nice little strip going across the right-hand side of our card. I'm going to pull out next those gliders. These gliders are super handy. If you've ever made penny sliders before, you know they're pretty tedious. Look how easy this is. You just slip it into the track. And like that, that's it. That's all you have to do to make a slider. This makes it so much more simpler, and you create such a cool effect in literally seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and put some adhesive on top of that little glider. I just use our Simon Says Stamp red line tape, and I'll attach my little wagon right on top. So now he can slide across the card perfectly. We're ready to start assembling now everything onto this card. I put my sentiment up on the left. I have all these cute little images kind of floating around different areas of the scene. I used Simon Says Stamp 3D foam squares to attach all these down so they have a little bit of dimension. And then this is going to get popped up onto a Slimline card. But I did want to fill in the track with the leftover negative piece. So I'm just going to slide this right underneath the glider because, of course, it's not attached to anything except for the paper that's on front. So I can easily slide this right underneath the glider and adhere it into that track so it really blends in. And that fills in the scene. We don't have that weird white space hanging out. And I just love how this card turned out. So this card used the Art Impressions Spooky Wagon stamp set, and we made it go up a notch by making it a little bit more interactive with our Simon Says Stamp slide and glide dies. And I think incorporating all those extra details of the ink blending to create the scene around it really makes this card something special. So I hope you were inspired. I hope you'll give it a try. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our future videos. And don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed. I'll be back soon with more to share with you all, but until then, I hope you have a fabulous day.